I never thought a random pair of men's underwear would destroy my entire marriage, but that's exactly what happened. I'm still trying to process how something so small turned into the moment that changed everything. My wife and I had been together for 8 years. Married for 5. No kids, just the two of us and a small apartment we were both proud of. From the outside, everything looked solid. We didn't fight much, we both worked stable jobs, and we had a routine that felt safe. Maybe too safe. Looking back, I realized the signs were there. They always are. But when you trust someone completely, your brain does this thing where it explains everything away. Late nights at work. She's just busy. Less affection. She's stressed. Phone always face down. Privacy. I never questioned it. Until that night. It was a normal Thursday. I got home earlier than usual because my boss let me leave early. I didn't text her, I thought I'd surprise her. Maybe cook dinner or just relax together. But when I walked in, the apartment was empty. No big deal. She probably stepped out. I went into the bedroom to change, and that's when everything started. I bent down to grab a pair of sweatpants from under the bed. They'd fallen there earlier in the week. As I reached under, my hand brushed against something soft, not mine. I pulled it out. A pair of men's boxers. At first, my brain didn't even process it. I just stared at them, trying to make sense of what I was holding. Dark gray, a brand I've never worn, definitely not my size. I actually laughed. I remember thinking, did I buy these and forget? But deep down, I already knew. I stood there for a solid minute, just staring at them, waiting for some logical explanation to magically appear. It didn't. That's when the feeling hit. That cold, heavy drop in your stomach that tells you something is very, very wrong. I started going through everything in my head. Had we had guests recently? No. No one had stayed over. No male friends had been in our bedroom, let alone under our bed. There was no explanation. Except the obvious one. And I hated that my brain went there immediately, but it did. I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding those boxers, and suddenly all those little things from the past few months started connecting. Her coming home later than usual. Her being weirdly protective of her phone. Her lack of interest in us. It all hit at once. I felt like an idiot. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation. There had to be. So I waited. About 30 minutes later, I heard the front door open. She walked in like everything was normal. Smiling. Relaxed. Like nothing in the world was wrong. And for a second, I almost believed it again. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her bag. I didn't respond right away. I was still sitting on the bed, holding the one thing that I knew would change this moment forever. She walked into the bedroom, saw me, and froze. Not completely, but just enough. Just enough for me to notice. And that's when I knew. I slowly raised my hand and held up the boxers. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Her face changed instantly. That slight confusion turned into panic in less than a second. I've never seen her like that before. Ever. And in that exact moment, without her saying a single word, I realized the truth. Everything I thought I knew about my life wasn't real. Her face changed so fast it almost didn't look real. 1 second she was relaxed, like she just walked in from a normal day, and the next, all the color drained from her face. Her eyes locked onto the boxers in my hand, and I swear I could see her brain scrambling to come up with something, anything. I finally spoke. "Whose are these?" My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was calm. Too calm. Like all the just shut off at once. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she did that thing people do when they're caught. She stalled. Looked away, then back at me, then down at the floor. I don't know, she said. That was it. That was her first answer. And something inside me snapped. "You don't know?" I repeated, standing up slowly. "You don't know how another man's underwear ended up under our bed?" She shook her head quickly, stepping back a little like I was the one scaring her. "Maybe they're yours," she said. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous I couldn't process it any other way. You think I don't recognize my own clothes? I asked. You think I just forgot I bought random underwear that isn't even my size? She didn't respond. And that silence was louder than anything she could have said. I took a step closer. Tell me the truth, I said, quieter now. Just, tell me the truth. For a second, I thought she might. Her eyes filled with tears, her lips trembled, and I saw that moment where she had a choice. Be honest. Or lie again. She chose. It's not what you think, she said. Of course. Of course it wasn't. That sentence. I swear, it's like a script. Like everyone says it when they get caught. Then explain it to me, I said, holding the boxers up again. Because right now, it looks exactly like what I think. She started talking fast now, like she was trying to outrun the truth. Okay, my coworker came over last week. We were just hanging out, and he changed after spilling something. Stop. I cut her off immediately. Because that was it. That was the moment I realized she wasn't even going to try to tell a believable lie. He came into our bedroom? I asked. Took off his clothes. Left his underwear under our bed. And you didn't notice? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Nothing. I shook my head slowly. You expect me to believe that? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she started crying harder. And that almost worked. For a second, seeing her cry triggered that old instinct in me, the one that wanted to comfort her, to fix things, to believe her. But then I looked back at what I was holding. And the feeling was gone. You think I'm stupid? I said quietly. Her eyes snapped up to mine. No. I just. Then stop lying to me. That hit. I could see it. Because her entire posture changed again. The defensiveness dropped, just a little. And in that tiny shift, I saw the truth. You've been cheating on me, I said. Not a question. A statement. She didn't deny it this time. She just cried. And that silence confirmed everything. I felt something inside my chest collapse. Not explode. Not rage. Just, collapse. Like a building finally giving up after being cracked for too long. How long? I asked. She wiped her face, shaking her head. It's not like that. How long? I repeated, louder this time. She flinched. A few months, she whispered. A few months. I nodded slowly, like I was trying to understand the words, even though they didn't make sense in my head. A few months, I repeated. So all those late nights, all those times you said you were working. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. It was him, I said. She hesitated, then nodded. That hurt more than anything else. Not the underwear. Not the lies. The confirmation. The fact that all those moments I trusted her, she was somewhere else, with someone else. In our bed. That thought hit me like a punch. Was he here? I asked. She froze again. And that hesitation. That 1 second of silence. Told me everything. I felt my hands start to shake. In our bed? I asked again, my voice barely controlled. She started crying harder. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean for it to. I turned away. I couldn't even look at her anymore. Because suddenly, every corner of that room felt different. The bed didn't feel like ours anymore. The space didn't feel safe. Everything felt contaminated. You let him into our home, I said, my back still turned. Into our bed. I made a mistake, she said through tears. I laughed again. That word. Mistake. Like she accidentally tripped and fell into an affair. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk, I said. This is a choice. A lot of choices. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. I stood there in silence for a moment, trying to figure out what I was even supposed to feel. Anger? Yeah, it was there. Pain? Definitely. But more than anything, I felt empty. Like everything we built just got erased in a single moment. I trusted you, I said quietly. That was the hardest part to say. Because it was true in a way that hurt to admit. I know, she whispered. And that made it worse. Because she knew. And she still did it anyway. I finally turned back to face her. Her eyes were red, her face wet with tears, but I didn't see the woman I loved anymore. I just saw someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could lie to me, betray me, and still come home like nothing happened. Who is he? I asked. She hesitated again. It doesn't matter, she said. I shook my head. It does to me. Another pause. Then, quietly. His name is Ryan. Ryan. Just a normal name. That somehow made it worse. Not some random stranger. A real person. Someone she knew. Someone she chose. Does he know you're married? I asked. She nodded slowly. Of course he did. So it wasn't just her. It was both of them. That realization hit differently. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was disrespect. From both sides. I took a deep breath. And that's when I knew. This wasn't something I could fix. I stood there, staring at her, waiting to feel something that would make this easier. Anything. Anger strong enough to scream. Sadness strong enough to break down. But all I felt was this heavy, suffocating calm, like my mind was trying to protect me from what was actually happening. This isn't something I can fix, I said quietly. She shook her head immediately, stepping closer to me. No, we can fix this, she said, her voice desperate now. We can go to therapy, we can. Stop. I raised my hand slightly, not aggressively, just enough to create distance. Because every word she said felt wrong. Not because therapy is wrong, but because she was saying it now. After everything. Where was all of that before? I asked. Before you decided to bring another man into our life. She broke down again, covering her face. I didn't plan this, she said through tears. It just happened. That sentence hit me harder than anything else she'd said. Because it showed me exactly how she saw it. Like it was something accidental. Unavoidable. Out of her control. You didn't plan it? I repeated slowly. So what, you just accidentally started texting him? Accidentally met up with him? Accidentally brought him into our apartment? She didn't answer. Because there was no answer. I took a step back, shaking my head. No, don't do that, I said. Don't try to make this sound like it just happened. You made a choice. Over and over again. She looked up at me, her eyes desperate. I was lonely, she said. And there it was. The justification. I was lonely. For a second, I just stared at her. Trying to understand how she could say that to me. To me? I asked. You were lonely, with me? She nodded, crying. You were always working, always tired, we stopped talking, we stopped being close. I let out a breath. Because part of me understood that. Not the cheating. Never that. But the distance. Yeah, it was real. Life had gotten routine. Work, sleep, repeat. We stopped putting in effort the way we used to. But I thought we were both in it. Together. If you felt that way, you talk to me, I said. You don't replace me. I didn't want to replace you, she said quickly. It just felt good to feel wanted again. That sentence. That one sentence cut deeper than everything else. Because it meant that somewhere along the way, I stopped being enough. And instead of fixing it with me, she found someone else. I nodded slowly. Did you ever think about me while you were with him? I asked. She didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. I looked around the room again. Because she stepped back, like she just realized something. Are you leaving me? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Because even though I knew the answer, saying it out loud made it real. But it was already real. You already left, I said. That broke her. She started crying harder than before, shaking her head over and over. No, I didn't. You did, I cut in. Just not physically. Not at first. I grabbed a small bag from the closet and threw it on the bed. The same bed that didn't feel like mine anymore. What are you doing? she asked, her voice panicked. I'm packing, I said. For what? She said. I looked at her. For my life. The one that doesn't include this. She walked closer again, grabbing my arm this time. Please, she said. Don't do this. We've been together for 8 years, you're just going to throw that away. That sentence almost made me laugh again. Throw it away. I said. You already did that. I'm just acknowledging it. She let go of my arm like it burned her. I made a mistake, she said again. I zipped the bag halfway, then stopped. And looked at her one last time. You didn't just cheat, I said. You lied. You brought him here. You looked me in the eyes every day and pretended everything was normal. Tears kept falling down her face. I still love you, she whispered. I paused. Because hearing that. It hurt in a different way. Not comforting. Not hopeful. Just, confusing. Maybe you do, I said. But not enough to be loyal. That was it. That was the moment everything inside me finally settled. Not in a good way. But in a clear way. I finished packing what I needed. Not everything. Just enough. Because I knew I wasn't coming back the same way again. As I walked toward the door, she followed me. Please, she said one last time. Don't leave like this. I stopped with my hand on the handle. And for a second. I almost turned around. Almost. But then I remembered the boxers. Under our bed. In our home. And everything they represented. I have to, I said quietly. Then I opened the door. And walked out. Without looking back. The silence after I closed that door was louder than anything that happened inside. I just stood there in the hallway for a few seconds, holding my bag, staring at nothing. It felt unreal, like I had just stepped out of someone else's life. 8 years. Gone in one night. I walked outside, got into my car, and just sat there with my hands on the wheel. I didn't start the engine. I didn't check my phone. I just sat. Because for the first time in a long time. I didn't know what came next. And weirdly, that scared me less than staying. My phone started buzzing. Her name. Over and over. I watched it ring, then stop, then ring again. I didn't answer. Not because I hated her. But because I finally understood something. If I picked up, nothing would change. She'd cry, apologize, promise to fix everything, and for a moment, I might believe it. But the truth? It already happened. You don't unsee something like that. You don't forget it. And you definitely don't build trust on top of it. So I turned the phone off. And for the first time that night, I took a deep breath. It didn't fix anything. But it felt like control. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a friend's place. Told him just enough so he understood I needed space. I didn't go into details. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. She kept trying to reach me. Calls. Messages. Long texts. Apologies. Explanations. Promises. At one point, she even wrote, "I'll do anything." That one stuck with me. Because if that was true, why didn't she do anything before it got to this point? That's when it fully clicked. People don't suddenly become loyal when they get caught. They just become scared. And I didn't want a relationship built on fear of being exposed. I wanted one built on respect. And that was gone. A week later, I went back to the apartment. Not to fix things. Not to talk. Just to get the rest of my stuff. She was there. Sitting on the couch. Waiting. Her eyes were red again, like she hadn't really slept. When she saw me, she stood up immediately. "Can we talk?" she asked. I shook my head. There's nothing left to say. That hurt her. I could see it. But it didn't change anything. I walked past her into the bedroom. And for a split second, everything hit me again. The memories. The life we had. But then I looked at the bed. And all I could see was what it became. Not what it was. That made it easier. I packed the rest of my things in silence. She tried to speak a few more times. I didn't respond. Not out of anger. But because I had already said everything that mattered. When I finished, I picked up my bags and walked toward the door again. Same as before. But this time, it felt different. Lighter. She stood there, not following me this time. Is this really it? She asked quietly. I paused for a second. Then nodded. Yeah, I said. And that was it. No yelling. No dramatic ending. Just, over. As I walked out again, I realized something. That pair of underwear. It didn't destroy my marriage. It revealed it. It showed me what was already broken, what I just refused to see. And as much as it hurt. I'd rather know the truth. Than live a lie I was comfortable in. Because at least now, I can finally start over. For real this time. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I post new Reddit stories about cheating, relationships, and crazy life situations every day. And if you have a story like this, feel free to share it in the comments.